Hello, and welcome to this edition of People in Transition. I'm your host, Bob Gerst. I've been hiring and mentoring executives, frontline employees, and job seekers for nearly 40 years through a host of transitions, some difficult, but most very good. This experience has given me a bird's eye view on a variety of trends, economies, industry disruptors, and transitions, big and small. It also brought me into contact with the thought leaders and decision makers you need to meet. Imagine knowing exactly what to do next and how to know it's time to make your big job change. We all know transitions can be scary, but it doesn't have to be. And it's even fun when you have actionable strategies and proven tactics to achieve the future you want. We'll share with you the tools and skills that can take your dreams to your next great job. So if change is on your horizon, you won't want to miss this discussion. Also, please subscribe to this podcast so you won't miss any future episodes. Jennifer Chavez, thank you so much for joining us today on People in Transition. I've been looking forward to this discussion, and I know that we'll have a great time.
Thank you so much for having me, Bob. I really appreciate it.
Jennifer, one of my signature questions that I ask each guest so that we get to know them a little bit better is, when you were a child, what was it that you thought you wanted to be when you grew up?
I love that question. So maybe some backdrop on that is my family pretty much worked for the city of Phoenix in government. And I knew that for whatever reason, that was not going to be my calling, that I wanted to work the commercial world. So I asked my parents, I'm like, what is the highest level that you can achieve in like commercial company? And they're like, oh, that's like a CEO or an owner. And I was like, well, that's what I want to be. So that's what I always said. I think that was from second grade on until I kind of figured out what I wanted to be, which is still a work in progress, I think.
And Jennifer, as you went along your career, from that time you saw yourself as a CEO as a young child to where you're at today, talk to us about some of the transition moments that you went through and experienced that makes you much more of an expert about job transitions.
Sure, absolutely. So I think I've had many different types of transitions in my life. From a career perspective, the one that I think was most poignant for me early on was when I first got out of college and I was looking for my first opportunity. It was during the recession, and I'm sure lots of folks that are graduating from college in times where jobs have been hard to come by can appreciate there was not much out there for college graduates, since there was so much talent available that had so many more years of experience during the recession. So it was a hard time. But, one thing that I really tried to look toward is aligning myself with industries that would have a lot of longevity and that would help me throughout my career. And in my studies, I had done an entrepreneurship business course and had really looked into what some of those trends would be. And I identified healthcare really as one of those key areas that I knew was going to, with the baby boomers getting to retirement age and aging populations, that was going to be something that really would be the wave of the future. So I tried to align myself with healthcare. And then I would say my first real opportunity out of college was actually working in pharmacy benefits management. And that kind of launched my career. And then while I was experiencing some of that transition, getting to that point, I also had kind of what I would say is a job that wasn't maybe my aligned career long term, but a job in the meantime. And I found myself in a position where I was 8 months pregnant and was losing my job. That was a really difficult transition for me to experience as well. And then in my most recent career pivot, and before I bought my own business and I'm now a solopreneur, I really had to take stock in that moment after a 23-year career. So I've had several different kinds of transitions throughout my life. Really, the keynotes of that is that I took stock in what did I need to do next to position myself well for whatever that next opportunity would be and, move toward that direction.
Jennifer, for some, they may be thinking about leaving that corporate environment and going off and becoming an entrepreneur. Be curious.
Mhm.
Talk through some of the emotions that you went through and some of the more practical things that you went through to help you make that decision to go off on your own.
Sure, absolutely. I love sharing this because I was somebody who was pretty risk averse. I had worked for a large company for almost 25 years, and so making a change was a big change for me. I've never owned my own business. Most of my family has never owned their own business. And so it was a pretty big leap to consider that. And that's not really where I started. And you asked me to talk about some of the emotions that I experienced. I think it's really important to talk about it and to share with others that I went through a huge identity crisis. And it is so common with everybody that I speak to that is going through a transition. And I think it's really underappreciated. It's sort of like if you were imagining yourself retiring and that panic that some people have, like, oh my gosh, what is that next chapter going to be like for me? I've done this for my whole life. It's a lot like that, but you're not ready to retire. So you're even more panicked because you're like, how am I going to get to retirement with this little setback? So it's definitely something that can be life altering. And it definitely was for me. And I also really just took that moment to say, gosh, all the emotions and everything I'm feeling are certainly tied up in my identity. So I have to, figure out what my new identity is going to look like and what Career 2.0 is going to look like. But first, there were some very basic things that I really needed to think about and address. And I just encourage everybody that when the rug's pulled out from under you, the first thing you need to do is really take stock of everything and think through all of the aspects of a transition. There's physical, there's emotional, there's financial. So there's, several different aspects that have to be managed. And I think a lot of people underestimate the impact of this. So you really need to start with, I call it the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Take care of your basics first. Make sure you're taking care of yourself, sleeping well, exercising, eating right. That can be hard during that time because it's very emotional when you lose a job. You really just have to find that strength within your network and your family to help you focus on those things. I always say put on your own mask first. They tell us that on the airlines and it sounds cliche, but other people aren't going to be able to see you in a position to lead others if you can't lead yourself.
Did you have someone to help you through this to take stock of yourself, or did you do it on your own? And is there a lesson that we could learn from you if we are doing it on our own?
Sure, absolutely. And I would say that no transition should you ever try to experience alone. Most important thing you can do is reach out to your network and leverage your network like crazy. And, hopefully you've put the time and effort and energy into your network. So that's certainly a lesson. If you haven't gone through a transition yet, make sure that you are greasing the wheels of your network when you don't need it. And I think of it like a checking account, right? Make sure there's enough credits in there to cover you if you're writing a check. Really invest in that because I think it's really important. So I had a lot of people that I tapped into that were in my network that helped me with different things. Some of them are coaches and worked with me to kind of think through where my strengths lied and what I should be looking for. I also very, confidentially sought counseling. I think it's really important to seek expertise. I had never been through anything like that before, and I really didn't know where to start, but I definitely had a lot of concerns and worries about my future. And so they really just helped me get myself centered and focused and in a place where I was really able to accept help from other people and kind of manage that transition. Really, it was the ending of something and the beginning of something new. So to be able to give it the appropriate place and to put it in perspective and seeking help from what I call my board of directors. My board of directors consists of really fantastic people who are in my network that I've cultivated relationships with over time that I know I can lean on and count on, being able to tap into them. It's also your family. It's really important to make sure that the people that you're with at home understand what you're going through and know how best to help you. And then some of those other things, like you might have an accountability buddy or a friend that's your exercise buddy that will go out with you and make sure that you're taking care of yourself during that time. So I would just say find your board of directors and make sure that you're collecting those different people that can help you with all those different aspects, whether it's financial, physical, emotional, and surround yourself with those positive people. And I call them your $1 million friends.
Jennifer, as a recruiting executive, you see hundreds, if not thousands of resumes. How do you get your resume to stand out in that stack?
That's a really great question. And I think it's somewhat counterintuitive to what people think. And not that it is not important to have a fantastic resume, it is. But there's something called ATS, which is automated tracking system or automated applicant tracking system, is what ATS stands for. Essentially, what it is, it's like the AI that we hear so much about, and it's a system that really takes your resume, and you're not supposed to put anything fancy on it, no extra fonts, no pictures, because the system doesn't like that stuff. It really wants to, it's reading words and trying to assess you from the words that are on your resume. So I think just being keen to the fact that that is so prevalent in resume submissions today, and that you may actually have to completely take out all of the great marketing stuff that you might have wanted to put in your resume when you're in in-person situations. But you should have one for in-person and one for the ATS system so you can differentiate yourself. And I think what should go on a resume can vary depending on the person and where they're at in their career stage. I think that's something that you certainly can outsource, use ChatGPT or other sources to get some great tips on, or, work with a recruiter, of course, who can kind of help guide you through some of those things.
I read that putting keywords on your resume is important. How do I know
Absolutely.
what those keywords are for the positions that I'm applying for?
That's a really great question. And I would seek out the job boards, LinkedIn, and look for other people that you know in your network that have similar positions to you, and kind of do some market research and figure out what they're using. There's also AI is such a great tool. And I would just say that asking ChatGPT for some suggestions on that, can also be helpful. But definitely there's a lot of different resources and things that you can find to do that.
Someone told me recently that they took some key phrases from job descriptions that they were applying for, made them a 1.5 font and white color font, and put it down at the bottom of their resume so that ATS system would pick up some of the key terms as it was scanning through the resume. Ever heard of that? You would suggest something like that?
Well, I think it's a super creative and fantastic hack if you are submitting your resume in kind of a more traditional manner, like when you're uploading it, those types of things. A lot of times, what I am seeing, and it depends again on how you're applying, but if you're applying for a job on maybe LinkedIn in particular, sometimes they actually guide you through the information they want. Sometimes you will attach a resume and sometimes you will not. They sometimes just use the LinkedIn filters for applicants and don't even allow you to submit a resume. So I think there's just so many different things out there. So many things are changing so constantly with all this emerging technology that's out there. So it's a really great suggestion and highly recommend that. If it works for you to be able to submit a resume manually where you're uploading it, that's a great idea. So I'm going to have to write that one down, Bob.
What does taking care of your personal brand mean, and how can you improve your brand to, again, enhance yourself in the marketplace?
I think this is kind of even adding on a little bit to the question that you just asked. As far as what they call SEO optimization, it's really search engine optimization. And there's different companies out there that actually will give you a free analysis and give you some ideas and suggestions. The more robust your LinkedIn profile is, the more things that you use on your profile to kind of bring in like different things you've posted, things you've done where you've been a speaker, or whatever it is for your particular industry. The more things that you have on there that really helps identify who you are, really gives people that opportunity and provides more words and more places for you to be searchable. But one of the most important places is in your headline on LinkedIn or any of your other social media platforms, because that's one of the first places that they go to when they're doing a quick search summary to look for keywords. So you want to make sure that the keywords that are in your LinkedIn headline profile are attracting the right kinds of people to you and have some of those keywords that are in your industry. So that's one way that you can optimize.
So I'm hearing you say, Jennifer, that recruiting professionals use LinkedIn, use other social media to help them in their tracking down candidates?
Yes, 100%. And I would say most organizations are using LinkedIn. LinkedIn is one of the very best sources for careers and transitions and connecting with people. But there are lots of other sources. LinkedIn is certainly not the only one. And each industry may be a little bit more specific. Not everybody is as savvy on using LinkedIn for every industry. So it varies. And that's why I kind of say social media in general. But I will tell you that I have LinkedIn pulled up and I'm on LinkedIn all day, every day. And it is one of my primary sources because you already have a big network of individuals, maybe personally, but then also professionally. They can see that you're a person and want to connect with people, not with companies. So I think what I do in being very visible and prevalent in my industry is one of the ways that people can then also find me because I post about it. So then they know that I'm an expert in that. So that's why I just say, no matter where you're posting or what kind of a profile you use, the more robust information you share about yourself so others can see it. Almost every recruiting company is using some kind of AI behind the scenes, or the platforms that they use are using AI behind the scenes. So the more, kind of consistent you are in your messaging, the more things you have out there that are relevant, that people really want to know about. And if you're sharing specifically advice with people on LinkedIn, it's going to get you optimized and get you more attention on LinkedIn. So whether you're a candidate and you're looking for a company, or you're a company and you're out there looking for candidates, those same suggestions are just the opposite sides of the coin and true. By being able to, share more about who you are, it really allows people to get a better picture of you and find you more easily and connect with you.
Jennifer, talk to me a bit about informational interviews. What are they? How do I go about getting them set up? And what should I expect as the results if I have some?
Sure. I love informational interviews and I really love this question. Although I think with all of the ways that we work today being remote, sometimes they're a little harder. But I think whenever you can, an informational interview is always the way I've approached any job whenever it's possible. And what it is, it's really you're just approaching it and reaching out to the hiring leader directly and saying, hey, I have some interest in this opportunity. I'm not really sure if we're a great fit. I'd really love to learn more about it if you have a few minutes and I can share a little bit about me and find out if we're a good fit. And whenever I've approached it in that way, I actually come to the informal discussion prepared as if I'm going to have an interview. I bring a portfolio to share with them to kind of showcase my talents. I bring a copy of my resume, and I really don't do informational interviews unless I really have a genuine interest in that type of an opportunity now or in the future. So, and really use it as an opportunity to gain a relationship with a hiring leader and really learn if you're going to be a good fit. Sometimes they already have somebody in mind. You'll get a really good feel for that in an informational interview. If they've never met you before, this is your perfect opportunity to show them who you are and why they should hire you. And every informational interview I have ever left, I've always left with a job offer because I've approached it that way. You put them in a no pressure situation, but you show them and showcase what you have to deliver. And most often, working on building just a good relationship and letting them see that you have great things to offer, a lot of times results in them asking you to apply.
Jennifer, let's say we're in that interview and those two fearful questions are asked of you sometime during the interview. The first one is, Jennifer, tell me about your strengths and weaknesses. And the second one is, Jennifer, why do you think we should hire you? How do
Mhm.
you help people that you coach answer those questions?
So the first one that you asked me, the last one was, why should I hire you? And I'll start with that one because I think how I tell people to prepare for any interview allows them to answer any question that's asked. And I like the why should I hire you question because it kind of gives you the platform for being able to answer every other question in the interview. And it allows you to tell them exactly why they really should. When you prepare for that question, the things that you need to know are what are those most important qualities and characteristics of the job, top three, and maybe top 3 to 5, depending on how long your intro is. But if you focus on those key qualities where you're a match, or you know that if they're hiring, somebody who leads people, that leadership is a key quality, for instance, and whatever those key 3 to 5 qualities are. When you're introducing yourself, you really should always just give a very small amount of background. Here's who I am. I bring X number of years of healthcare experience to the table, and here are the types of experience that I have that I think would make me a great fit for you, and highlight those key 3 to 5 qualities that you're bringing to the table. And that just kind of whets the appetite and it sets the stage. And then throughout the interview, you prepare examples that further highlight those top 3 to 5 qualities. So you think of your very best stars, the thing you've done the best in your career and that you want to highlight. And then you always know that there's maybe 3 or 4 characteristics in any situation that you could use to highlight. So you already always have the answers to a question. You just find the best way to mold those into an answer during an interview, and you're going to shine.
And that other question, describe for me, Jennifer, your strengths and weaknesses. I get now how you'd suggest that they respond about the strengths. How about that negative side, your weaknesses?
I really always think that taking a weakness apart and talking about it like a story is always the best idea. And again, a weakness that is something that you have maybe overcome in the past that it aligns with the strength of the job. So maybe it's a leadership opportunity. Talking about a specific example or a specific situation where you did have a challenge in that area, but you overcome it, and you can share the example of how you overcame it so successfully because it's one of your best examples, is exactly how I would answer that question. And same thing on the strength side, but just, highlighting something that was a strength. So you just take an opportunity to say it was an opportunity for me in leadership because of XYZ. But once I recognized that, I put a plan into place to overcome it and was able to deliver XYZ results. So you can show that you have vulnerability, that you've had missteps in your career. It's not whether you've had them, everybody has, it's how you recover from it. And that's really what any employer is looking for is, do you have enough emotional intelligence to be able to understand when you have made a mistake, and can you course correct and seek help when you need it?
Jennifer, today, so many interviews, at least the first ones, are being done via telephone, maybe Zoom. How do you make certain that you can make that experience as successful for yourself as possible?
That is a great question. I have a preparing for the interview guide that I do share with anybody that I am working with. And I really cover that pretty extensively. And the first time you think you don't have to cover that with someone, you do. So I might have been chuckling a little bit when you were preparing for our podcast because you do. You need a checklist to make sure that when you go into an interview, you're prepared. So it's, if you're on Zoom, I prefer people not show their background if they have some sort of a background on their Zoom, or have it be a blurred background. Make sure that you don't have animals or people or children walking behind you on camera. It needs to be a quiet space. Don't have it in a bedroom. Make sure that the background is professional appropriate. Always make sure you are dressed as professionally as you would when you're going to an in-person interview and you're trying to nail the job of your career. Dress exactly how you would like to be perceived for the job you want. And when you do that, also make sure that if you have long fingernails. I work in healthcare, and so a lot of healthcare workers don't make the employer ask you if you're going to be able to cut your nails when you're working in a caregiving job, for instance. Address that up front or just cut the nails before the interview. So know when it's a bona fide job qualification. And even if you have tattoos, nothing wrong with that. People do these days, but you're in an interview and in a professional environment. So just, look as professional as you can. That's your first impression. And if you're only on the phone, be mindful of where you are. What is the background noise? Again, a quiet room. Just make sure you have a nice quiet space to have that conversation where you don't have distractions and you don't have your phone going off. So those are all really just common sense things that I think hopefully everybody can just reflect on and just say, we always need to maybe do that checklist and do a double check, because while we're all professionals, sometimes it's easy to forget, hey, did I switch off the phone to silent?
We've talked about a lot of really positive things that you coach people do or you've seen people do. Let's flip that coin just a bit. What are the areas that you've seen people struggle with when they're in transition?
I think confidence is the number one. And that's one of the reasons why I say on the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, first take care of you, because I think when you're coming off of a transition, it's easy to lose that confidence in yourself. But I think that is really important to project. People want to hire people who have confidence and command. So I think it's really incredibly important that you practice that. So practicing for an interview, I think, really helps you with that confidence. And that's one of the reasons why I always schedule kind of a practice session the day before and just go over the interview and get them, hyped up and ready to go and all pumped up. And I always say it's a great idea beforehand, and get yourself into kind of that what I call flow state, which is kind of a happiness, or if you think of a sports athlete who's going into their peak performance mode. Some people listen to music, some people jump up and down, some people do different things, jumping jacks or whatever, do your power pose, stand up. There's a lot of things you can do, but just getting yourself kind of mentally prepared for it.
And Jennifer, the road to finding your next great job opportunity for some can be months long, and it's filled with setbacks, some victories, but a lot of setbacks. How do you take lessons from each of those experiences, and how do you use those lessons to keep you motivated to go forward?
That's a really good question. So I think anytime you go through a transition, it's probably going to be 2 steps forward, 1 step back. There's moments of elation and excitement when you maybe have an interview or, get to talk with a great hiring leader, but then it doesn't work out and you're not the one that's selected for that opportunity. I think the very best thing that you can do, no matter what the situation, is try to keep up your positivity, be as absolutely graceful as you can, and even just extending offers to the hiring leaders that you're working with. Hey, if there's anything I can do to help you in the future, please feel free to reach out. I'd love to stay connected. Whatever those things are that kind of make you take an opportunity that happens to you that could be a negative and try to turn it into a positive, because you are going to have setbacks and it's going to happen. And that's why I say it's a marathon, not a race. So you kind of need to prepare in that way and know that you have to pace yourself, and it's not all going to happen necessarily in the timeline that we want, but know that when you put the work in motion and you get the wheels turning and you put yourself out there, eventually those efforts do pay off. It isn't always as quick as we would like. So just make sure that you're reaching out to your network and getting support from people and trying to keep your energy up, and don't take those things personally. It maybe just wasn't meant for you. And sometimes our prayers get answered by not getting answered.
Jennifer, any books or other resources that you would recommend to someone who's looking for their next great job?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I know there's a ton of resources out there. I know I reference LinkedIn a lot, but they do have a lot of good training and resources. I also have resources that I share with both candidates as well as clients. I always try to share relevant industry information and updates and things that, are relevant to both sides of the fence. But I definitely, for candidates, have some tools and tips and resources that I can assist with. So you're more than welcome to reach out to me, grnmoonvalley.com is my website, and Chavez at grnmoonvalley.com. And I'll be more than happy to try to connect you with whatever resources you need. Everybody's career and kind of area might be different. And I don't necessarily specialize in every area of expertise, but I do have 200 offices that I can refer others to if it isn't my area of expertise. So I'm always happy to help point people in the right direction.
Jennifer, we have covered so many great tips and techniques to help people find their next great job opportunity. If you were to summarize for someone, what are the 3 things that if they don't remember anything else, remember these 3 things, what would those be?
I would say, first of all, update your LinkedIn profile, optimize it, make sure people can find you. Use some of those free resources that are out there that can help you if you're not sure, and check out your friends. Leverage your network, LinkedIn or otherwise, like crazy. Don't be afraid to ask, but also be willing to give to get. So introduce someone to someone in your network, and be willing to do that proactively, sometimes without being asked, if you see someone that should get connected. And then I would just say, this is your opportunity to redefine yourself and consider what Career 2.0 can be for you. And whether that is like me, deciding to open your own business or get another job doing what you were doing before, or do something completely different. It's a new beginning. So celebrate those small victories, set small goals for yourself, and work toward them each and every day and chunk away at it. And before you know it, you're going to have that job, or you're going to have whatever it is that you're looking for in that next transition journey for yourself. And just, make sure you also look at the accomplishments, because it's easy to get down on ourselves, but just stay positive and reflect on how far you've come, because it's pretty amazing, the work that goes into a job transition search in particular. So just pat yourself on the back for all the good work you've done.
Jennifer, from all of our listeners, I know that they got so much great information from you today. And I just want to say thank you for your caring and sharing enough based on your experience and knowledge. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Bob.
Thank you for listening. We're working in unprecedented times. The purpose of these episodes is to give you the support and critical tools to adjust with the changing marketplace. I'll continue to introduce you to guests who have successfully survived their own obstacle course and can share useful information. If today's message was helpful to you, please share it on your social media. Your review and rating helps get this to more people. Also, if you have questions or podcast ideas for future conversations, reach out to me on LinkedIn. Change is constant. The more prepared you are for it, the better and easier the change will occur. Thank you again. This is your host, Bob Gerst. See you at our next episode.